The police had his name. His wife had given them a confession, specific details, verified facts, information that had never been made public. She passed every test. She knew where the victim's belongings had been thrown. She knew details only the killer could have known. And then she married him. And under the law of the United States in 1946, a wife could not be compelled to testify against her husband. 5 people were dead. The investigators knew who did it. The one witness who could prove it was protected by marriage. And the phantom killer of Texarkana walked free for the rest of his life. Spring 1946. Texarkana, Texas, a border city split down the middle between Texas and Arkansas, population 50,000. World War II had ended 8 months earlier. The boys were coming home. The country was exhaling. And then something moved into the darkness at the edge of town. It targeted couples, parked cars on quiet roads after dark, lovers' lanes on the Texas side of the city. It wore a white cloth mask with 2 holes cut for eyes. It carried a gun, and it was patient, waiting weeks between attacks, long enough for the fear to settle before striking again. The local press gave it a name. They called it the Phantom. February 22, 1946. Jimmy Hollis, 25 years old, and his girlfriend Mary Jean LeRae, 19, were parked on a secluded road south of town after seeing a movie together. A figure approached their car in the dark, holding a flashlight, a white mask over his face. He ordered them both out of the car. He pistol-whipped Hollis twice, fracturing his skull. He assaulted Larry. When headlights appeared in the distance, he fled. Both survived. They gave police the only description of the Phantom that investigators would ever receive from a living witness. White cloth mask, average build, calm, methodical. He did not panic when the car appeared. He simply left. Police had a description. They had no name. They had no physical evidence. They had no idea what was coming. March 24, 1946, 29 days after the first attack. Richard Griffin, 29, and Polly Ann Moore, 17, were found shot dead in their parked car on a remote road. Both had been shot with a .32 caliber weapon. There was evidence of a violent struggle. No witnesses, no suspects. April 14, 1946. Betty Jo Booker, 15 years old, a popular high school student who played saxophone in a jazz band, had performed at a dance and accepted a ride home with her friend Paul Martin, 16. Their car was found the next morning, engine still running, 2 miles from where Betty Jo's body was discovered in the woods. Paul Martin was found shot a mile away. Both had been shot multiple times. The saxophone case was missing. The Phantom had now killed 4 people in less than 2 months. And nobody had seen his face. Texarkana stopped going out at night. Women whose husbands traveled for work checked into downtown hotels rather than sleep alone. Hardware stores sold out of door locks and window bolts within days of each attack. The Texas Rangers arrived. The FBI arrived. Newspapers across the country covered the story. Composite sketches appeared on telephone poles and in shop windows. On May 3, 1946, the 4th and final confirmed attack, a farmer named Virgil Starks was shot through his living room window while reading the newspaper at home. His wife Katie was shot trying to reach the telephone. Virgil died. Katie survived, crawling to a neighbor's house with 2 bullet wounds, leaving a trail of blood across the floor. The Phantom had moved from parked cars on dark roads to a lit farmhouse with the curtains open. He was escalating. He was adapting. And he was still invisible. The break in the case came not from forensics, but from a pattern. Arkansas State Police Trooper Max Tackett had noticed something the other investigators missed. Before each murder, a car had been stolen in the Texarkana area. After each murder, a different stolen car had been found abandoned nearby. The Phantom was stealing vehicles for each attack and abandoning them afterward. In July 1946, 2 months after the last murder, Tackett staked out a stolen car on the Arkansas side of town. A woman came to retrieve it. Her name was Peggy Stevens. She told Tackett she was traveling with a man named Youell Swinney. Swinney was 29 years old, a career criminal, counterfeiter, car thief, burglar, assault convictions. No documented history of violence at this scale, but when officers arrested him at a bus station, his first words to investigators were telling. He said, "You want me for more than stealing cars." Peggy Stevens, now Peggy Swinney, having married Youell 6 days after his arrest, agreed to speak with investigators. What she told them stopped the case cold. She described the Booker Martin murders in specific detail. She knew where the victims' belongings had been discarded. Officers drove her to the location. She directed them precisely. She knew details that had never been released to the press. She knew things that only someone present at the murders could have known. Investigators independently verified her account at multiple points. Her own family believed Youell was guilty. His brother-in-law believed it. Both lead investigators, Tackett and Tillman Johnson, spent the remainder of their careers convinced Swinney was the Phantom Killer. The case against Youell Swinney was, at that moment, the strongest it would ever be. And then Peggy recanted. Investigators believed she was frightened of Swinney, or frightened of implicating herself in the crimes. Her story shifted in certain details across multiple interviews. Without her consistent testimony, the physical evidence alone was circumstantial. Fingerprints found at the Booker Martin scene did not match Swinney's. The case against him could not be proven in court without her as a witness. Under United States law in 1946, and in most states for decades afterward, a spouse could not be compelled to testify against their husband or wife. The spousal privilege existed to protect marriages. In this instance, it protected a man investigators believed had murdered 5 people. Youell Swinney was convicted of car theft as a habitual offender in 1947 and sentenced to life in prison. He was released on appeal in 1973. He gave media interviews in the 1980s denying any involvement in the murders. He was calm, coherent, and consistent in his denials. He never confessed. He never broke. He was never charged. Youell Swinney died on September 15, 1994, in a Dallas nursing home. Lung cancer. He was 77 years old. He was buried in an unmarked grave. A handful of family members attended. The 2 lead investigators who had spent their careers believing he was guilty, Max Tackett and Tillman Johnson, both died without seeing a charge filed. The Texas Rangers case file remains officially open to this day. And then, in 1999, something unexpected happened. An anonymous woman began contacting the surviving families of the Phantom's victims. She told them she wanted to apologize. She said she was sorry for what her father had done to them. Youell Swinney was not known to have ever had a daughter. Investigators could not identify the caller. The call stopped. No follow-up was ever made public. 5 people were murdered in Texarkana between February and May of 1946. 3 more were attacked and survived. The Texas Rangers investigated. The FBI investigated. The Arkansas State Police identified a prime suspect, produced a witness who knew facts only the killer could know, and watched the case collapse because the law said a wife could not testify against her husband. The Phantom Killer has never been officially identified. The case remains open. And somewhere in an unmarked grave in Dallas, a man who told police he had done more than steal cars was buried without ever answering for it.